In this world, in this universe, there are a limitless number of possibilities. There are many parallel dimensions similar to ours, but there are also realities with differences that have changed the social landscape, sometimes even the literal landscape. In one particular dimension, Las Vegas is a very different place. Condensed with little to no room between the casino buildings. Besides the neon lights, it's dark. Murky shadows fill the thin alleys. The gritty, decaying buildings make this place feel like it's trapped in a time period and doesn't know it. It's dying a slow death. You won't find children here. It's a Disneyland for those looking for trouble. One fellow, George, is planning on finding it. George is a former lieutenant of the Las Vegas police. Under mysterious circumstances, he was discharged, and as per his non-disclosure agreement, is forbidden to discuss it, even in this story. George is gruff, with stubble on his face. His black eyes and stern gaze command authority. He moves with confidence. Though slower since the illness, George has terminal cancer. The pain is getting worse, unfortunately. As he walks, George looks up at the neon signs. They remind him of the days when he used to patrol these streets. George scoffs at his own nostalgia. It was a dump then, but that was 1,000 times better than what it is now. The bright lights remind him of Technicolor. Several stories up, the light from the huge signs trickles down to the streets below. The sign designs are mostly of women. They knew who they were marketing to. Other popular variations include wild 70s typography and cowboy themes with spurs, horses, and ancient imagery of the Old West. George doesn't have much time left. He wants to destroy all of this before the end. He has a death wish: to wreck the Queen. Who's the Queen, you ask? She runs the show in Vegas. This is understood by everyone. Orders are given, digitally or hard copy. No one has ever seen her or knows her real name. She's always just referred to as the Queen. She lives in the castle, which is right in the middle of Vegas. It's surrounded by walls, stories high, which shield it from the decay just outside its doorstep. This castle is big, somewhat wide, but notably tall, much taller than anything else. At over 3,000 feet, it's difficult to even comprehend on street level. George wants to know who she really is. The government's hiding something. More accurately, the Queen's hiding something. Vegas years ago became its own country. Total authority comes from behind those walls. George has a plan to get in. There's a huge drawbridge over the moat, but in all his years, he's never seen it open. That gate's many feet thick, no chance getting in that way. And so, he has a parachute hidden behind his jacket. He's calculated the best way to jump in is from the huge Ferris wheel nearby. As mentioned, no children are permitted in Vegas. The Ferris wheel has a reputation as a ride for couples to do adult things. As George heads for the entrance to the wheel, he avoids eye contact with the women standing on the corner. He'll have none of that. Even if you win money in Vegas, you lose it just walking down the street. He finally makes it to the Ferris wheel and hands money to the operator, who can't help asking, "Riding solo?" George nods and takes a seat. The Ferris wheel starts slowly rotating. When he finally gets to the top, he removes his jacket, his parachute at the ready. George kicks open the rusted door, jumping out over the castle wall. The wind hits him and a thrill goes through his body that he hasn't felt in years. He opens his parachute and, though the landing is bumpy, arrives safely on a window porch of the castle. About 10 stories up, he has to pause for a moment. His knees throb from the landing. His body is in constant pain these days, even after morphine. But he won't let it stop him. He pushes on, smashing the window and jumping in. He looks around. There's no one here. It's too quiet. The room is elegant with fancy furniture and decor, something for the ultra-wealthy. If the interior designer had had a theme, it was gold. Although probably once bright and well lit, today cobwebs cover everything. This room hasn't been used in ages. He can't open the door, so he kicks it out. Moving into the hall with his gun up, he discovers essentially an abandoned castle. No signs of life or any activity in quite some time. What's going on? George passes through hallways with dusty red curtains. He climbs flight after flight of marble staircases. Hours pass, and he starts to think he might die here, to go undiscovered. He hasn't seen a window in hours, maybe even days. It's a maze. Like a child lost in the forest, he can't keep track. He can't remember where he's been. A sense of dread fills him. Then suddenly, George hears a noise. It's like several screams, almost in unison, but slightly off and distorted. He's never heard anything so disturbing, so awful. It continues. He's terrified, but he knows that whatever this is, it's what he's come for. He follows the screams to a huge door covered in gold plating. Whatever's making that sound is behind this door. It has a rusty padlock on it. George never liked guessing games. He shoots the padlock. The door creaks open, and he enters. The room is dimly lit, but from what he can see, did something just move? The lights suddenly go on. George is totally speechless. In this huge room, computers and hardware line all the walls. Many, many wires from the computers converge to the middle, where there sits a huge blob. It's a dark grayish color. It's shaking, making that hideous noise. It has mouths with fangs, drooling green slime. It has numerous red eyes, and all of them are looking right at him. Then a digitized voice comes from the computers. "Why are you here?" George asks, "Are you the Queen?" The voice responds, "You have seen me. You cannot leave." George smirks. "I have no intention to." He aims his gun. The voice attempts to reason with him. "Kill me, and everything you know will perish." George responds, "Joke's on you. Anything good has been soaked up long." George is still speaking when one of the mouths shoots out and bites him. The fangs sink into his left leg. George screams as he goes down, still connected to the blob by a long gray tendril. The fangs pull him across the room towards the blob. Drooling profusely, it leaves a green trail behind them as they go. George stares in horror to see that trapped in the slime are small human faces with terrified expressions. George knows he's about to be swallowed. Fortunately, he planned a failsafe. He opens his jacket, revealing grenades and dynamite, lots of both. The blob swallows him whole. There's a moment of silence. It burps uncomfortably. Then there's a burst of flames. The computers emit a high-pitched screech, shattering all the glass. Yellow gas explodes everywhere, melting wires and equipment. The flames expand, totally consuming the castle. However, it doesn't stop there. The flames lick up the surrounding dilapidated buildings like they're made of paper. Screams are heard, but the heat is so intense that death is swift. Everything in Vegas was consumed. Several hours later, the smoke cleared. All that was left was ash and dust. Vegas was just a memory.